Hello everybody, welcome back to Anglo Election Insights. Now today I'm just ducking across to the UK to quickly preview the local elections, the mayoral elections and the by-election in Runcorn and Helsby just quickly. So what I'll start off with is the polling aggregate on Wikipedia here, which shows in terms of Westminster voting intention, if we go back to say 2024, we'll see that Labour mostly held the lead following their election victory. Occasionally the Tories would jump in front as well. Then as the Tories and Reform began to split the vote a little bit more, Labour took the lead the majority of times before in more recent findings this year, particularly in February and then again in April, we see Reform beginning to take the lead more and more, and in some pollsters it's quite a significant lead, particularly in Find Out Now, leads of 6, 8 and 8 points in their last three national polls. So we know that local elections aren't being held all across the country. But having said that, I thought it might be good to just look at some of the headline numbers that the pollsters have put out in their most recent releases. So firstly, we have YouGov here, which has Reform on 25% of the vote, 2 points clear of Labour, and the Tories another 3 points behind on 20%. We also have another pollster, Techna UK. Is that how you say it? I would have a clue. Anyway, they have Reform and Labour tied on first place at 25% apiece, and the Tories back on 21%. Note the Greens Party on 8% here. And if we have another look back at YouGov, they have them on 10%. Quite interesting. I think Labour is going to find that increasingly they're getting squeezed on both sides, and perhaps in Greater London or certain constituencies come 2029, they might increasingly face a threat on their left flank as well. We mentioned the latest Find Out Now. This has Reform UK all the way up to 29%, well clear of Labour and the Conservatives, and again the Greens polling double digits. So coming back to the local elections, in a previous video I detailed a little bit more about the individual county seats and how this MRP breakdown found that the various parties were doing. I just want to note that there has been one additional poll taken over that basically covers the local elections, and that found Reform just ahead of the Tories, which I guess would make sense because I'm assuming that they've only polled the constituencies that are going to the polls, and the Tories do control the majority of those. So it very interesting to see Reform pulling ahead of the Tories, but yeah, that would make sense given which councils are coming up. The Lib Dems, that would be an improvement on their 2021 performance, I believe, as well. So I think what we could see across the country is Reform really challenging Labour in some of the Labour heartland councils. Doncaster comes to mind. The Tories will find themselves in trouble in places like Lincolnshire, Worcestershire, around the Midlands, and mostly sort of the Midlands area, and a couple of councils around Birmingham, where Reform's placing both Labour and particularly the Tories under increasing pressure, but also the Lib Dems are really consolidating their vote in the south. So councils like Cornwall and Gloucestershire could come under threat from the Lib Dems as well. I note too that Lord Hayward, who is a pollster, he is forecasting that Reform could gain between 400 and 450 seats, and that the Tories would lose sort of around 500, keeping in mind that 2021 was a pretty high tide year for the Conservatives. If we have a look at the MRP predicted result, the Tories are down a little bit more than that, and Reform are gaining nearly 700 according to this model. So Lord Hayward being a little bit more conservative in his estimates there. If I quickly look at the betting odds, the Betfair has markets for the mayoral elections. So firstly, west of England, the Greens are actually favourites here. In Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, the Tories are heavy favourites. But then in all three of Lincolnshire, Hull and East Yorkshire, and Doncaster, which is very much heartland Labor territory, Reform are the favourites in all three. So we could see Reform gaining or claiming three of these races, while in North Tyneside it is Labor well and truly the firm favourites there. The latest nowcast model has also been released, and interestingly enough, Reform have overtaken Labor to become the largest party in Parliament according to this model, and the Tories dropping back to under 100 seats, which would be a devastating result. Lib Dems continue to do well, up to 78. The SNP recovering most of their ground. The Greens are up, Plaid is slightly up, and Independents, who are mostly threatening Labor on their left flank over issues relating to Gaza and that sort of thing. So just having a quick look at this map, you can see Reform making massive gains either side of the Thames estuary, up through sort of Norfolk, all across the Midlands, particularly the East Midlands, but then coming down towards some of these larger population centres around sort of Nottingham, Birmingham, up north. You can see heading into seats around Leeds, up towards the northeast, around the Newcastle area. Some of these urban electorates like Blackpool, for example, making big gains, and then in and around the Manchester and Liverpool area as well. So, as well as no, that's about it. Then you see Wales as well, the south of Wales continuing to make gains, while the Labor seats are, becoming very, very marginal down towards Cardiff. So otherwise, the Lib Dems continue their dominance in the south, inflicting quite a lot of pain on the Tories. But at the same time, Reform is starting to make some gains right on the south coast, including the Isle of Wight and even down into Cornwall, interestingly enough. So some of those areas have more direct implications for the upcoming local elections. Some of them don't particularly. Just as a side note, this is the ongoing sort of scorecard that this guy, Mark Pack, keeps for council by-elections. So he's recorded all the results from the last local elections in May last year to today. And what he's found is that the Tories have actually done relatively well, picking quite a lot of seats off Labor. Labor have been hemorrhaging seats. The Lib Dems are actually net zero. The Greens have picked up seats, and Reform, big gainers as well. Interestingly enough. However, just keep in mind, with these council by-elections, the turnout's often very low, sort of in and around 10-20%. So it may not be the best representation of the true mood of the electorate. I'll just quickly come back to Betfair to have a quick look at how the polls are looking, or the markets are looking for Runcorn and Helsby. You can see that Reform remain favourites at 1.34, and there are markets for vote percentage too, where they're tipped to win somewhere between 30 and 40% of the vote, probably more likely in the high 30s according to the market, and then Labor likely to poll also between 30 and 40, but with a bias towards the low end. Okay, I think that'll do for today's video. The results should start coming in tomorrow morning or afternoon. I'm not sure exactly when they'll start reporting. Obviously, here in Australia, it's full fever pitch as far as the Australian federal election, but I'll still be keeping an eye on how it goes. Do join me for tomorrow's video, which will be my final prediction map for the Australian federal election. I'm sure some of you guys will be keen to see that. And then don't forget that I will be live streaming with Aussies Elect on his channel with Salmon on election night. I'd love to see you guys hanging out with us. We'll be having a bit of fun. We're not going to take it too seriously, but obviously as the results come in, we'll have plenty to say. So thank you, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.